also go by AngusByDesign. And I just finished a practice where I read the Tibetan Book of the Dead, chapter to chapter. And then I pulled an animal oracle card, because that's a wellness tool that I have and that I enjoy. And but I finished that book yesterday. So I thought, well, in order to keep on keeping on, I would find another book and then do the same thing, but maybe a little differently. So I decided this is a book that I have in my library. It's called Insight Meditation, The Practice of Freedom by Joseph Goldstein. The back cover says, Insight Meditation will be welcomed by all those who wish to extend and deepen their commitment to a life of mindfulness. And that was John Kabat-Zinn, author of Wherever You Go, There You Are. This is a wonderful and compassionate book. That's Natalie Goldberg, author of Writing Down the Bones. Wise and practical guidance for anyone who seeks to free the mind through meditation. That's Daniel Goleman, author of The Meditative Mind. With delightful simplicity and straightforwardness, Joseph describes the practice of mindfulness that offers insight and joy. And that is Stephen Levine, author of A Gradual Awakening. The fruit of some 20 years' experience leading Buddhist meditation retreats. This book touches on a wide range of topics raised repeatedly by meditators and includes favorite stories, key Buddhist teachings, and answers to most asked questions. And Joseph Goldstein is co-founder of the Insight Meditation Society in Bar, Massachusetts. I don't think I said that right. Massachusetts. In Bar, Mass. Let's just say that. Where he is one of the resident guiding teachers. He is the author of The Experience of Insight, a simple and direct guide to Buddhist meditation, and co-author of Seeking the Heart of Wisdom, the Path of Insight Meditation. And it looks like this book was published in 1994. So what I'll do is I'll start reading it. The goal will be to get through like a chapter or some sort of reasonable point. And then I've got this book in these cards, which are the Gaia Oracle. And the art, I think, and everything's by Tony Carmine Salerno. Says it was first published in 2008. But it's a bunch of cards. And these are like affirmations. Tony Carmine Salerno is an intuitive artist and author born in Melbourne, Australia. His often emotionally charged work to explore and reflect in spirituality inherent within nature, our universe, and humanity. Gaia, goddess of the earth, the feminine, and his constant source of inspiration. So her beauty, love, and wisdom are reflected in all of his work, regardless of the subject matter. So that's kind of cool. So, so I like doing that as a practice because essentially at the end of the day, right? This is like a practice to read. Oh, that's a beautiful image. Really just for, my own wellness. This is my dog Bo. You'll be able to maybe see him on the couch. He's just chilling out behind me, but that's pretty much it. And then I've been a Reiki master since 2007. I do mental health and peer support stuff, and I used to drive bus, that sort of thing. So I'm just, this is just me. This is where I'm at. There's no expectation here, so there's no I don't have sort of like I don't have a goal to sort of like reach whatever. Like, I'm sort of learning TikTok, but I know that I don't have expectations. It's more or less a practice and something that's shared. And then what I tend to do is at the end of the practice, I'm going to try to keep it under an hour. I'll repost it. But then I'll also look at, how many people came through. It's pretty cool. It's like a little eyeball or whatever that just says how many people sort of put their energy here. So what I'll do is I'll dedicate the practice and the card pull for that. So just looking at the book again, so it's Insight Meditation, The Practice of Freedom by Joseph Goldstein. The dragon is an age-old symbol of the highest spiritual essence, embodying wisdom, strength, and divine power of transformation. In the spirit, Shambhala Dragon Editions offers a treasury of readings in the sacred knowledge of Asia. In presenting the works of authors, both ancient and modern, we seek to make these teachings accessible to lovers of wisdom everywhere. So that's just a little bit about the publication. This was published in '94. And dedicated to those whose generosity and love of the Dharma have made possible so many things. The birds have vanished into the sky, and now the last cloud drains away. We sit together, the mountain and me, until only the mountain remains. And that's Li Po. So there's a preface and some acknowledgements, and then it goes into number one is, what is the path? And then it's sort of broken down. So let's see how far I can get through this. And then I'll leave time at the end so I can pull the card. So the preface then. So May 1965, Thailand 10. One of the first Peace Corps groups drink champagne at 30,000 feet above the Pacific, toasting the West going east. Because I am not yet 21, Pan Am will not serve me. What I know about Buddhism would not fill one of those tiny stem plastic glasses. A smiling man with a big belly, an idea of calm, nonchalantment, breathing through all things. July 1974, at summer session, Naropa Institute, Boulder, Colorado, a Buddhist Woodstock celebrates the East coming West. My initiation as Dharma teacher in America. In the midst of exhilaration, people wanting to know. I feel the wind gathering, lifting us all, and I think this is the beginning of something. January 1993. A generation later, the teachings of the Buddha blow steadily. gently through our Western culture. A 3-month retreat ends our 18th since 1975. 100 people walk out into the world, some smiling calmly, others on fire with the truth of their experience. My blue computer screen shines with their questions into winter's early night. The Buddha's lion roars calls us all to awaken. If we know how to look, we discover wisdom and compassion, the true nature of our mind. Inspired by this possibility, many of us have been learning to look, to question, and to see for ourselves. Discovery is the first step. And the next, His Holiness the 16th Karmapa of Tibet expressed it very simply. We have to do what we know. To free our mind, we put discovery into practice. Many Westerners have been practicing Buddhist insight meditation for nearly 20 years. Some sit daily. Some come for weekend or 9-day courses. Others do 3-month retreats or many 3-month retreats. Some do even longer ones. Within the range there is every possibility. What follows touches on a wide range of topics repeatedly raised by students of the Dharma. These practical, incisive, often compelling questions gave birth to this book, and that's written by Joseph Goldstein in Bar, Mass, in January 1993. Acknowledgements. I wish to express my gratitude to the many people who helped make this book possible. Eric Kovig, Sharon Salzberg, Ram Dass, etc., etc. All right. So chapter 1. So this is again a book that I have in my own library. I listen to a lot of Joseph Goldstein's podcasts and stuff like this. So this practice is just to read a chapter and to pull a card from the Gaia Oracle. So 1, what is the path? The Dharma. Done is what had to be done. This phrase, found so often in Buddhist texts, always inspires me. It appears in many songs of enlightenment, words exclaimed by women and men in the moment of their liberation. These words bring me joy because they are reminders that we can actually walk the path of freedom to the end. It will be a wonderful moment when we sing that song. Done is what had to be done. But questions may haunt us. Is it possible to awaken? It may have been possible for the Buddha, but is it possible for me? Can I really do it? We can if we know the way. We practice the Dharma in order to understand that way, in order to be free. That is the heart of all the effort we make, because from freedom come connectedness, compassion, loving kindness, and peace. The word Dharma in Sanskrit or Dhamma in Pali is a huge umbrella term with many different meanings. Among others, it means the truth of the way things are. It means the specific elements of experience and the natural laws that govern that experience. Dharma also refers to the teachings of the Buddha and to the paths of practice that lead to awakening. So Dharma is all-inclusive. Everything is the Dharma. Everything follows its own lawful nature. The Buddha saw with such clarity how different states of mind and courses of action lead to different results. Unwholesome mind states have certain consequences. Wholesome mind states have results of their own. As we begin to understand the truth of how things are, we see for ourselves what brings suffering in our lives and what brings happiness and freedom. So, in true spiritual undertakings, there is no compulsion. The Buddha laid out a comprehensive map of reality. When we understand the map well, we can choose freely which direction we take. It is simple. If we want to be happy, and if we understand the causes for happiness, then we can cultivate those causes. Happiness follows. We can make such choices because Dharma is the reality of natural law, of how things work. If our lives unfold randomly, with no physical or moral laws operating, then we could not influence the directions of our lives at all. We would simply be subject to the winds of chaos. Although at first our mind might feel like a whirlwind of activity, the amazing path of Dharma practice helps us begin to sort things out. We establish some stability and focus in our mind and see which elements in it lead to greater peace. Let's see here. Which to greater suffering. So all of it, both the peace and the suffering, happens lawfully. Freedom lies in the wisdom to choose. So as we walk the way of awareness, we see that the deepest purpose we all have is to perfect the qualities of our heart and mind. The spiritual path transforms our consciousness, purifying it of greed, hatred, ignorance, fear, envy, jealousy, and those forces that create suffering in us and in the world. We all share this most fundamental purpose of freedom. It is the universal potential of the mind itself. In my early years of practice in India, I studied with Munindraji, one of my teachers in Bodhi Gaya, the place where the Buddha awakened. So Bodhi Gaya is a small village with many beautiful temples, and as Munindraji and I would walk together through the village, he would often point out very simple village people who had been his students. Many of them had attained different stages of enlightenment. So seeing those people encouraged me because judging from outward appearances, you would never guess their spiritual attainments. They looked like simple village folk going about their business. I came to appreciate firsthand the often stated truth that realization does not depend on social or educational background. Everyone shares the basic commonality of being alive, of having mind and heart. Our task is to awaken and purify this mind heart for the benefit of all. So understanding this task, this path, gives a context in which to hold and measure each of our actions. Does this action we're about to perform, any action, help us awaken, or does it hinder us? In all our different life situations, we can practice purifying our mind. When we know and connect with the path of freedom, and when we commit ourselves to do it, no matter what, then beyond any doubt, we will one day exclaim our own song of enlightenment. Done is what had to be done. All right. Well, so far, so thanks everybody. And oh my gosh, thanks for, there's like 1,311 hearts, and 53 folks have sort of passed through. I'm just, the goal here is to read the first part of the chapter, or get through as much as we can of the book Insight Meditation, The Practice of Freedom by Joseph Goldstein. And then I'm going to pull an oracle card for reflection. And this is just like guidance, affirmation, and transformation. I really like to sort of like partner up and see in reflection, like if how something that's like mysterious from like a card pull, how it fits into what we're taking in the book. So this is just a practice that I have, and we'll see how far we get. It's interesting, right here above my microphone it says family wrap. So when it talks about action, I've been what's called a wellness recovery action plan certified facilitator for about 5 years. If you're looking for sort of a template or a framework to do your own work and to guide your own sort of recovery, I recommend it. It's something that has really helped support me in my wellness, in my recovery, in my practicing. And it's really just about action plans, but it's like it's rooted in our own self-determination. So it's really about not like, I'm not here to tell you what to do. Nothing of what I'm doing or saying or reading is meant to be advice based. It's all reflection for yourself. It's all just a practice, sharing space. So fear of enlightenment. Meditators sometimes report that fear of liberation holds them back in their practice. As they proceed into uncharted territory, fear of the unknown becomes an obstacle to surrender. But this is not really fear of enlightenment. It is rather fear of ideas about enlightenment. We all have notions about freedom, dissolving in a great burst of light or in a great cosmic flash. The mind might invent many different images of the experience of liberation. Sometimes our ego creates images of its own death that frightens us. Liberation means letting go of suffering. Do you fear the prospect of being free from greed? Do you fear being free from anger or delusion? Probably not. Liberation means freeing ourselves from those qualities in the mind that torment and limit us. So freedom is not something magical or mysterious. It does not make us weird. Enlightenment means purifying our minds and letting go of those things that cause so much suffering in our lives. It is very down to earth. I have to figure out why my computer goes to sleep in the middle of this, but that's a me turning 50 thing. I think technology hates me. So let's see here. So it's very down to earth. Imagine holding on to a hot burning coal. You would not fear letting go of it. In fact, once you notice that you are holding on, you'd probably drop it quickly. But we often do not recognize how we hold on to suffering. It seems to hold on to us. This is our practice, becoming aware of how suffering arises in our mind and of how we become identified with it and learning to let it go. We learn through simple and direct observation, seeing the process over and over again until we understand. So, when the Buddha described in his teachings in the most concise way, he said that he taught one thing and one thing only: suffering and the end of suffering. Understanding this reality for ourselves frees our mind and opens more fully the possibilities for compassionate action in the world. So I'm just reading this book, Insight Meditation, The Practice of Freedom, by Joseph Goldstein. And then I'm going to pull a card just as a practice. So welcome. Intelligence and progress. So awakening is for everybody. I think it is fortunate that progress on the path does not depend on the level of one's intelligence. Coming to understand this fact was a great opening for me during my years of training to be a teacher. When I was in India training with my teacher, Munanadraji, I sat in on many of his interviews with yogis to watch how he taught. After some of the interviews, he would describe which meditation subjects were suitable for different individuals. Once he said, "Oh yes, this one is suitable for intelligent people, and this one for stupid people." I had an immediate strong reaction to this categorization because of the certain middle class Western conditioning. I was offended that anyone would be considered stupid. It was freeing to learn that for spiritual practice, there is no preference regarding intelligence. Some people are intelligent and some others are not. According to the teaching, if you are intelligent, you do one thing, and if you are dull, you do another. The path of purification, compendium of much of the Buddha's teachings, describes different meditation subjects and indicates for whom each is best suited. So over the years, I've come to appreciate both the obvious strengths intelligence provides us and some of the tremendous dangers. So we all know people who become strongly identified with and attached to their intelligence. It can become a big ego trap, harmful to oneself or others. Intelligence can also be a great blessing, providing invaluable clarity. For me, it was important to learn that many other qualities of mind reflect nobility and beauty of character much more than intelligence. Generosity, love, compassion, or devotion do not depend on a high IQ. One of my favorite stories from the Buddha's time tells about a disciple of the Buddha who was very dull. His brother, another disciple, was an arhat, fully enlightened, and was also very smart. The dullard had been inspired by the teachings and had been ordained as a monk. He had the sweetest heart, but his mind was really slow. Because he was slow, his brother gave him as his practice a 4-line verse of the Buddha's teachings to memorize. So the dullard struggled and struggled to learn one line. Then, as he was trying to learn the second line, it pushed out the first. One line was all his mind could hold. This struggle went on and on. He simply did not have the intelligence to do it. His Arhat brother finally gave up and said, "This is hopeless. You had better leave the order of monks." The poor dullard was totally dejected. He felt so sad because his heart was devoted to the Dharma. As the dullard was walking back to his village, feeling very low, the Buddha, knowing what had happened, came and walked by his side. He stroked the poor dullard's head and consoled him by giving him a practice exactly suitable for his condition. Here's a meditation subject for you. Take this white handkerchief and stand out in the hot sun and rub it. That was the whole meditation. So the dullard took the handkerchief, went out in the sun, and began to rub it. Slowly, the handkerchief started to become dirty with sweat from his hand. As that happened, memories awakened him of previous lifetimes of practice when he had seen impurities coming from his body. As he continued to watch the soiled handkerchief, a profound dispassion arose and his mind opened. He became fully enlightened. It is said that he became enlightened. As he became enlightened, intelligence and all the traditional psychic powers came to him, in addition to deep understanding of the Dharma. So the story then ends by describing some good-humored psychic tricks the former dullard played on his surprised brother. And I felt great affection for the dullard. So this is just reading from the Insight Meditation, The Practice of Freedom with Joseph Goldstein. It's been about 33 minutes, and then I'm going to pull a card from the Gaia Oracle. Feel free to just share the space in a way that's meaningful for you. No expectation, you're welcome here. And so, one taste. Is enlightenment gradual or is it sudden? Whole schools of Buddhism have grown up around this issue, but it has always seemed to me that liberation is both sudden and gradual, that there is no polarity between the two. Enlightenment is always sudden. It is grace. When the conditions are right, it happens. But the path leading up to that moment is gradual. We practice, we create the field, we prepare the ground, and the mind eventually opens suddenly and spontaneously. Then again, after sudden awakening, can come a gradual cultivation and ripening of the enlightened mind. The Buddha declared straightforwardly that our mind in its natural state is pure, but that is obscured by visiting defilements. And one of his discourses, he said, "The mind is radiant, shining, glowing forth, but it is stained by the defilements that visit it." The mind is radiant, shining, and glowing forth, and from the uprooting of defilements that visit it, it is freed. Techniques vary but the essential teachings of the Buddha on the nature of suffering and the realization of freedom are found in all of the Buddhist traditions. Countless forms have evolved in all the places where the Dharma has flourished: India, Burma, Thailand, Tibet, China, Japan, Korea, Sri Lanka, Cambodia, Vietnam, and elsewhere. The Munindraji told me long ago that he was familiar with over 50 techniques of insight meditation in Burma alone. Do not become attached to the idea that there's only one right way or technique in practicing the Dharma. Freedom and compassion are the reference point for all practice. Everything else is skillful means. There are many experiences along the way. As soon as we take a stand, any place at all, thinking this is it, we have already overshot the great jewel of emptiness, creating yet another sectarian view. One of my teachers voiced what I think is true for all traditions, practices, techniques, and views. He said, unless a practice cools the fires of greed, aversion, and ignorance, it is worthless. This is the measure of everything we do. What is truly wonderful about the Dharma in the West is the opportunity for practitioners of all traditions to meet and learn from one another. Each of the great traditions, Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana, Tibetan Buddhism, has so much to offer. As the Buddha said, the Dharma has one taste, the taste of freedom. And for all of us, practice is the key. There is a wonderful story of Milarepa, the great Tibetan yogi. It seems that at the end of his life, Milarepa took his foremost disciple to a remote mountainside in order to transmit the most secret teachings. With great reverence and devotion, the disciple requested the transmission. Milarepa then bent over, exposed his backside, and pointed to the leather-like calluses that had developed from his years of sitting. As individuals, we will have different cycles as our practice unfolds. There are times when you might have a lot of energy for intensive silent meditation retreats that can help stabilize strong awareness and open new levels of insight. At a certain point, however, you might find yourself losing energy for such intensity in practice. This waning in the cycle might come after a few years, a few months, or even at first after a few days of intensive practice. When it comes depends on each person's level of development and particular life situation. I knew one retreatant who had been practicing in Asia for several months. His practice had reached a certain level of maturity, but for some reason he could not make any further progress. When our teacher asked him about conditions at home, he spoke about a compelling desire to see his family again. Our teacher advised him to return home for a visit. After seeing his family, his mind was clear to that obstacle, and when he came again to practice, he finished that particular course of training. So be wary of holding a fixed model of how your practice should proceed. At times, you may be drawn to investigate your mind in a secluded retreat situation. At other times, you may not feel this need for solitude. Just follow the rhythm of the cycle in a simple, natural way. If liberation is the central aspiration of your life, periods of intensive meditation practice can be of inestimable value. They generate tremendous energy, power, and insight. But there are also cycles of living actively in the world, developing generosity, morality, truthfulness, and compassion. Qualities are more easily expressed in the daily life than in retreat. So then in turn, these great strengths of mind will further empower your intensive meditation. All right. So far about 92 folks have checked this out, which is awesome. There's like 1,311 hearts. I have about 19 minutes left of this practice to keep it under an hour. I'd like to keep about maybe 10 minutes for pulling a card from the Gaia. But I'm just going to keep on moving, keep on going, because the next section is 4 Noble Truths. So I'm going to get that part out of the way and see how much time I have left. So as the teachings of the Buddha spread throughout Asia and the world, many schools of interpretation arose, each with its own emphasis, metaphysics, and skillful means. Although the different traditions may disagree about some points of the Dharma, one formulation of the teachings remains in central jewel common to them all: the 4 Noble Truths. The Buddha described the 4 Noble Truths as the truth of suffering. The word dukkha in Pali has a wide range of meanings, including suffering, insecurity, and unsatisfactoriness. The Buddha awakened without fear or self-pity to the reality of suffering in life. He recognized the problems of suffering very clearly. The pain of birth, old age, death, sorrow, pain, grief, despair, association with the unloved, separation from the loved, not getting what we want. All this is dukkha. As we investigate the nature of conditioned phenomena on increasingly deep and subtle levels, we begin to see their inherently unsatisfying nature. We all know that painful feelings in our bodies or in our minds are suffering. But we can also understand this truth of dukkha when we become aware of the momentariness of experience. No experience, no matter how wonderful, will bring us a deep and lasting satisfaction, precisely because it is always changing. The continuous flow of phenomena often reminds me of water going over the lip of a high waterfall. The water is endlessly falling away, without stopping, without rest. That is the nature of all experience. In addition, the Buddha described a third kind of suffering very graphically in the fire sermon. The eye is burning, the ear is burning, the body, the mind. Burning with what? Burning with the fire of greed, the fire of aversion, the fire of ignorance. We find it hard to open to the truth of suffering because we are conditioned to seek refuge in conventional ways. We seek our refuge and happiness in pleasurable things, in things that are themselves transitory. Often we do not make the necessary effort to stop, to open, to sensitize ourselves to what is really going on. All right. My computer went to sleep again. So the wonderful paradox about the truth of suffering is that the more we open to it and understand it, the lighter and freer our mind becomes. Our mind becomes more spacious, more open and happier, and we move past our avoidance and denial to see what is true. We become less driven by compulsive desires and addictions because we see clearly the nature of the things as they are. But it is not enough simply to see and understand the suffering in our lives. The second noble truth recognizes its causes. What are the causes of suffering? The Pali word is kilesa, which means afflictive emotions, the torments of the mind, such as greed, envy, hatred, anger, and fear. These states and others torment us and create suffering. Kilesas manifest on different levels, so sometimes they are so strong and that they cause what one Buddhist monk from Burma translated as outrageous behavior, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, causing great harm to oneself or others. The force of these kilesas is so obvious when we look at what is happening all over the world: murder, rape, torture, starvation, national hatreds. All this suffering has its roots in people's minds, in our own mind. We can abandon this level of suffering when we have a commitment to ethical precepts, to non-harming behavior. The Buddha taught 5 training precepts as great protections from these kinds of harmful acts: not killing, not stealing, not committing sexual misconduct, not lying, and not taking intoxicants that cloud the mind. Imagine how different the world would be if everyone followed just part of one of these precepts: not to kill other human beings. A middle level of kilesas is those unwholesome states of mind that bring about actions of speech or mind that are somewhat less impactful. And the subtlest level of kilesas is called latent defilements or latent afflictive tendencies. These are not present in the moment, but have the potential to arise if they are given the appropriate circumstances. So we can see these latencies at work when people are put in situations of overwhelming stress and commit actions they might not normally even consider. So the Buddha placed great emphasis on uprooting one particular defilement in order to abandon the causes of suffering. This kilesa, considered the most dangerous, is the strong belief in and view of some permanent self. As long as our mind is afflicted by the wrong view, by that incorrect perception of things, it leads us on to perform many other kinds of unwholesome actions. If we have a mistaken notion of I, then we need to defend it and gratify it. And thus, many of our actions begin to revolve around this wrong view. The writer Wei Wu Wei or Wei Wu Wei succinctly expressed this roots Kalesa's delusive effect. It is like a dog barking up a tree that isn't there. Meditation purifies the mind in the most deeply conditioned kilesa, which has caused so much suffering in our lives and which is the basic misperception of our existence. Through a power of mindful awareness, we get a sense, a taste of what selflessness, absence of self means. We understand not theoretically or conceptually, but in the experienced freedom of the moment. Such liberating understanding is not new. It goes back to the time of the Buddha and to countless Buddhas before him. This understanding is the nature of the Dharma itself. It is also expressed in the wisdom of many people of different cultures. A 14th century Japanese samurai wrote, "I have no parents. I make the heavens and earth my parents. I have no home. I make awareness my home. I have no life or death. I make the tides of breathing my life and death. I have no divine power. I make honesty my divine power. I have no friends. I make my mind my friend. I have no enemy. I make carelessness my enemy. I have no armor. I make benevolence my armor. I have no castle. I make immovable mind my castle. I have no sword. I make absence of self my sword." We are all samurai making absence of self our sword. The sword of wisdom cuts through ignorance, cuts through delusion. The first noble truth teaches the truth of suffering and its different levels. The practitioner who understands the second noble truth recognizes and abandons the causes of suffering and weakens its uproots the affliction of the mind, particularly the view of self. The third noble truth teaches us that there can be an end of suffering, a putting down of the burden. We glimpse the end of suffering at different times in our practice. We can taste the freedom in just the moment when a kilesa vanishes. When we're caught by the afflictive emotions, we feel tight, burning, contracted, and in the moment, when we let go of that identification, our mind is released. Right in that moment, we have a taste of freedom, a taste of the end of suffering. This freedom is real. It is our own experience. It is not just some idea. Every time we become aware of a thought, as opposed to being lost in a thought, we experience that opening of the mind. A familiar experience of this release comes when we go to the movies, become totally absorbed in the story, and then walk outside. A kind of reality shift happens, a little jolt of awakening. Oh, that was just a movie, but how much were we lost in the non-stop moves of our mind? Every moment when we were mindfully aware of what is happening becomes a moment of awakening from our own story. Oh yes, that was just a thought. It is not the big drama that I believed it to be. This is a moment of opening. We experience the truth of the end of suffering in another way at the stage of meditation called equanimity, about formations. A mind suffused with equanimity is poised and balanced with whatever may be arising in the experience. So we feel soft and spacious as things come and go, and equanimous mind does not move reactively at all. This state is likened to the mind of a fully enlightened being. So even before we have realized complete liberation, we can still experience this place of peace. We also experience the truth of the end of suffering by opening to the end of all conditioned phenomena, the realization of the unconditioned, the unborn. The fourth noble truth of the Buddha's awakening gives us the full development of the path leading to liberation. The path of practice is direction and straightforward, although it takes tremendous perseverance and commitment. The path of practice consists of 3 trainings. First, we train in morality, in non-harming. If we try to practice meditation without the foundations of goodwill to ourselves and others, it is like trying to row across the river without first untying the boat. Our efforts, no matter how strenuous, will not bear fruit. We need to practice and refine our ability to live honestly and with integrity. In the second training, we develop energy, concentration, and mindfulness. These are the meditative and life tools that enable us to awaken. Without them, we simply act out the patterns of our conditioning. These 2 trainings are the foundation for the third, which is the emergence of wisdom. Wisdom is the clear seeing of the impermanent, conditioned nature of all phenomena, knowing that whatever arises has the nature to cease. When we see this impermanence deeply, we are no longer clinging. And when we no longer cling, we come to the end of suffering. So I'm going to pause that there because I really did want to pull a card from here, and I want to end this in about 2 minutes because I want to keep it under an hour. So I'm going to shuffle and we'll contemplate what that means. I'm going to pull this card because it stood out. And it says, Sacred Earth Mother, a message of love. 42. So this is just for reflection and connection to what we just read. So, Sacred Earth Mother, a message of love. We travel the endless corridors of our mind until one day we find a pathway that leads us to our heart. Who you truly are has nothing to do with your personality or your achievements, successes, or failures. The you think you are is an actor playing a role that your soul has chosen. The essence of you is soul, light, with no beginning or end. You are an eternal spark of pure creativity, unlimited potential that yearns to be expressed and fulfilled. Your potential is your destiny. It awaits your call. Trust your heart and apply its love and wisdom to all you do. In this way, you will create or do. All you create or do will be a true expression of your soul. It is through expressing your truth that you create things of lasting value. Be true to you. Affirmation. I am in essence light. I am in essence soul. I am pure creative potential. I am guided by my heart. I apply love and wisdom to all I say and do. All right, well, that's been my hour practice. There are about 110 folks here, 1,311 hearts. And I'm going to post this on the YouTube and I'll repost it here. So thank you for joining me. I've read the first part of Insight Meditation, The Practice of Freedom by Joseph Goldstein. I'm going to continue. If you want to continue with me, let me know. See you soon.